us. We're going to talk about two separate issues here. Two separate pieces that he wrote. One is about careful what you wish for, because he describes what he says California would look like without illegal immigrants. And the CNN piece that he wrote is about the spanking issue. Of course, come to light with the Adrian Peterson spanking, the NFL, the whole thing. So let's watch a soundbite regarding the spanking issue first. And you'll know this man, and you'll hear what he has to say, and then we'll go to Ruben.
My mom did the best job she could do, raising 7 kids by herself. But there are thousands of things that I have learned since then that my mom was wrong.
Yes. Thank you.
It's the 21st century. My mom was wrong. She did the best she could, but she was wrong about some of that stuff she taught me. And I promised my kids I won't teach that mess to them. You can't be the kid to make them do what they want to do.
That's correct. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thousands of things we have learned since then. And now we're to the point, the only thing I'm proud about is the team that I played for. They did the right thing.
Yes.
Take them off the field.
All right, Chris Carter, former Viking star, joining us as mentioned, is syndicated columnist and CNN contributor Ruben Navarrette Jr. Hello, sir.
Good to be with you again.
Well, always good to be with you. All right, your piece, spanking isn't child abuse, it's common sense. Tell us where you come down on this whole issue.
So I was getting ready for my assignment from CNN. I said, what do you guys want me to write about? I sent them some topics. They said, well, what do you think about spanking? We've got a piece they set up on our website at CNN.com by Mel Robbins. It's already gotten another writer who's gotten 10,000 comments. She says spanking is child abuse. And I said, I kind of groaned and said, oh. So I wrote a piece about the Adrian Peterson controversy as a jumping off point and trying to really bring some common sense and nuance to this discussion. I do not believe that spanking a child is child abuse, and I'm guilty of that myself. I have spanked my children. But what I'm doling out to my kids, 5, 7, and 9, in terms of punishment, there's no resemblance at all to what I got as a kid from my father or what he got from his father. And I think that every generation, to the earlier comment that was on that clip, does learn. There are things that my parents did I'm not going to repeat with my own children. But this notion that somehow if you spank a kid, swat them on the bottom, not even their bare bottom, but through their pants, that somehow amounts to child abuse, a single swat, that's nuts. And I think I had to say so. So I wrote a column about it. It got another 10,000 comments. And I was really struck, Steve, by how passionate people feel about this, how passionately they feel about it on either side.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They do feel very passionate about it one way or another. Most people certainly do. Obviously, when you see the scars and you know that he was using a tree branch or whatever it was on a 4-year-old, there's a lot of people who say absolutely not. But I've heard many people say, like you're saying a little bit here, that that's how I was raised. Chris Carter might have been raised that way, but he doesn't see the extension to carrying it on to his children. And let me play devil's advocate, because I am not defending Peterson. And truth be told, my kid's going to be 15 next month. Maybe I hit his bottom with my bare hand, open hand, once in 15 years. I don't even know if I did, but I don't belittle someone who does spank their kid. That's their business. But let me ask this: I mean, one could play devil's advocate and use the argument, okay, weren't kids better behaved back then? Didn't they grow up to be better people back then? And now with no discipline or lack of discipline, isn't that one of the reasons why kids are answering everybody back and getting in trouble and running around and doing drugs and committing crimes? I mean, can't you make that argument?
Yes, kids nowadays grow up with a sense of entitlement. They grow up disrespecting authority. They don't respect their parents, which then means when they get out into society, they don't respect teachers or police officers or anybody else. And it's bad. It's really a terrible thing, and it's not good for our society. And again, everything applies to common sense. We're not talking about beating kids. I was spanked with a belt. I do not spank my kids with a belt. But when I swat my kids behind through their clothes one time in complete control of my emotions, I think it's nonsense to have people call that child abuse. I also think, Steve, and we've detected this before, there's a tendency in this country to want to parent everybody else's kids. And it came up recently in this story out of Texas, where a woman was called in by CPS because she let her kid play outside alone, a 9-year-old. And she was called in by the people who called CPS were her neighbors. You have a lot of meddling people out there who are intent on raising other people's kids. And then it all of a sudden becomes about condescending. It becomes, a morally superior tone, that somehow they're better people than you. And oh my goodness, your kids are going to grow up to hate you. It really does get out of hand very quickly.
No, it absolutely gets out of hand very quickly. And I go back to the days when I was a kid, but things are different. I mean, I wouldn't let my 9-year-old kid, out to play alone, or 8-year-old kid or whatever. But of course, when I was 9, especially in the summer, it was, okay, Mom, see you for lunch, and then, okay, Mom, see you for dinner. And we were out playing in the schoolyard, whatever, and we knew when we heard our mom call through the window or we were hungry, we came home. I guess it was a different time than it is today. But we've heard all kinds of things when it comes to child abuse. Softening the definition of child abuse to, if they want to make it in some places, and it might already be that if you smoke in the car and there's a kid in it, that's child abuse. And I think Hannity actually said, if I remember the Mediaite story correctly, and I didn't hear it, but I read the headline, which I should do more, but I think it said that he said that, and again, I hope it was him. If it's not, I apologize, that one day if you don't teach your kids that the right thing about, the quote-unquote right thing about homosexuality, that'll be child abuse. I mean, that you could carry it as far as you want.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there is this tendency to sort of use our kids as a weapon against one another. There are going to be people who, again, want to involve themselves in your life and to do it in this way through spanking. We're having a conversation about Adrian Peterson, who used a switch on a 4-year-old to the point where there were welts and blood. That's a whole different story from the way most people discipline their kids. And again, I'm not trying to advocate for spanking. I don't care if you spank your kid or not. But the other side is trying to change somebody's behavior. They are trying to shame us, those of us who do spank our kids. And again, very rarely. We're talking about 5 or 6 times a year compared to, 5 or 6 times a month in my case when I was growing up as a kid. So I got to believe, though, another point, Steve, you hit on it earlier. What's worse, having a kid who grows up with, quote, low self-esteem, or a kid who is a smart aleck, disrespectful, has plenty of self-esteem? They just don't amount to anything because they don't know how to apply themselves. They have no discipline and no respect. And so with the case of these African-American athletes, weren't we just arguing about 10 minutes ago that the problem in black families is fathers aren't around? Now we're arguing that fathers are around and they're too rough with their kids? When are black Americans ever going to get it right in terms of the critics?
That's a very good point. Very good point. All right, now let's go to something we may agree on or may not agree on, and that is a piece that you wrote about what California would look like without illegal immigrants. And the headline is, the title is "Careful What You Wish For. Here's what California would look like without illegal immigrants." So what would it look like?
Well, the conundrum in this country has always been with Germans, Italians, Irish, Jews. We don't like people when they come to this country. We're a country of immigrants that doesn't like immigrants. Even if you come legally, it doesn't matter. But we always need you. We always really do need immigrants. The Irish, the Italians, the Jews worked harder than the native.
But wait. Let me stop you there. Not to interrupt, because but are you saying the Irish, the Italians, and the Jews came here illegally, like the Mexicans coming across the border now?
Yeah, in some cases, the reason you have the slur WOP, W-O-P, they used to stamp that at Ellis Island without papers. If you came in without papers. So yeah, there were cases of people who came in, quote, without papers. But the main point here is,
but they came in through Ellis Island. They went through authority. They were allowed into the country. They weren't sneaking in. I mean, that whether it was without papers or not, at the time, a decision was made to allow them into the country. They didn't cross the border illegally in the middle of the night. They weren't smuggled in. I mean, I don't see the analogy to today.
Well, I don't want to steer too far off, but if you look at the Central American kids who came in, they likewise came in like the Italians, raised their hands. They encountered the Border Patrol. They didn't hide. They said, "I'm turning myself in." And there were still folks in the media, maybe on your show and other shows, that refer to these kids as illegal immigrants. So we do have a tendency to blur the terms when it suits, when it's convenient for us. But the main point here, and it's very strong, when Benjamin Franklin railed against the Germans, or when Henry Cabot Lodge railed against the Irish, or these folks railed against the Jews and the Italians, it didn't matter that those folks came legally. That was irrelevant. The fact is that they were different. They spoke a different language, had a different culture. The difference trumped the legality issue. And my point here, very clearly, is that we don't like immigrants, regardless of how they come, but we need them because they do these jobs that Americans won't do. We have the whole phrase, the other slur, "a Chinaman's chance," came from the fact that the Chinese were building the railroads in California and getting blown up by dynamite in the process. Because guess what? There were no natives lining up to do those jobs. That's why you brought in the Chinese. So what this new study in California shows us is that right now, for all the belly aching the Californians do about illegal immigration, man, we're addicted to it. 10% of our workforce in California are illegal immigrants, and they contribute over $130 billion a year to the economy. We're hooked on this drug.
Well, I never bought into that. I see. To me, if Republicans used that argument, if everything were reversed and said, you know, who else is going to clean the toilets and do the dishes and pick in the fields except Mexicans, they'd be called racist. I just don't buy that argument. We have people who can't get jobs, people who are unemployed, and a black community that in many areas is up in arms over the illegal immigration problem and the prospect of legalizing more who have been here illegally for years. So they're not convinced of that either. I'll give you the final word. We got about 30 seconds.
Well, listen, they can be convinced. Nobody wants to admit that they don't want to do these jobs, that they're unmotivated or lazy. But I've gone out to avocado fields, spoken to farmers there. They've told real stories of Americans who go out there and try to do the work. They don't make it past the lunch break. They throw the bag on the ground, say, I can't do this, and they walk off or run off. So, again, jobs are available. If y'all want to work, go out to the farm. They're hiring.
All right. Listen, Ruben, always great to talk to you, sir. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
All right. That's, of course, Ruben Navarrette, syndicated columnist, CNN contributor. Coming up next, former Navy SEAL and former FBI agent Jonathan T. Gilliam will be here to talk about the military and their lack of respect for President Obama. Don't go away.